The night was unusually still in the quiet suburban street of redwood pines. Houses stood shoulder to shoulder, identical in structure but unique in the faint glow of their porch lights. Most of the residents were asleep, tucked behind double-locked doors and drawn curtains. But inside the Dawson residence, a faint blue light flickered from the living room. Ben Dawson, a freelance video editor, had been up late working on a project. His wife, Claire, had gone to bed hours ago. When the notification ding from the Ring app appeared on his phone, Ben frowned. It was rare for anyone to come near their door at this hour. Ben tapped the screen and the live feed appeared. At first, he saw nothing but the dimly lit porch and the swaying shadow of the wind chime. Then, movement, slow, deliberate. A figure emerged from the darkness, stepping into the camera's field of view. It was a man, tall and thin, wearing a soaked hoodie with the hood pulled tight around his face. He stood perfectly still at the foot of the porch, head tilted slightly upward as if studying the lens. Ben's first thought was that the man was drunk or lost. But when the stranger didn't move for nearly 2 minutes, his stillness became unbearable. Then, the man raised one hand and began waving, slow, rhythmic, mechanical. Ben unmuted the camera audio. The faint sound of wind filled the speakers, but underneath it came something else, a distorted whisper, like a voice pressed through static. The man seemed to be speaking, but his lips didn't move naturally. Ben leaned closer, adjusting the volume. The whisper grew clearer, a series of fragmented words. "It's still open." Then, without warning, the man turned his head sharply toward the side window, as if reacting to a sound inside the house. Ben's pulse spiked. He grabbed the remote and muted the TV, holding his breath. Through the feed, the stranger stepped closer, one slow step at a time, until his face filled the entire frame. Pale skin. Wide eyes. Mouth slightly agape. And then, he smiled. Ben jumped up, spilling his coffee, and sprinted to the door. He peeked through the peephole. Nothing. The man was gone. But the Ring feed showed otherwise. The stranger was still there in the video, staring directly into the camera, even though the porch was empty in real life. Confused and terrified, Ben replayed the footage again and again. The timestamp never changed. 3:17 a.m. frozen. The live feed had ended abruptly at that same moment. He decided to wake Claire, but as he turned, a sound echoed from outside, the unmistakable creak of footsteps on the porch. This time, they were real. He rushed back to the peephole, heart hammering. Still nothing. Then, his phone buzzed again. Another Ring notification. This time, the video clip started automatically. But it wasn't a new one, it was the same 3:17 feed replaying itself. Only now, the man's expression had changed. His smile was wider, almost stretching unnaturally across his face. And something else, a faint reflection appeared behind him in the glass door, a second figure standing in the darkness. But this one wasn't outside. It was inside the house. The following night, the Dawsons tried to return to normal. Ben deleted the Ring app footage, convinced it was a glitch or some cruel prank. He told Claire about the strange man, but softened the details to avoid frightening her. Still, he couldn't shake the unease. Every time he passed the front window, he half expected to see the man standing there again. By midnight, Claire was asleep, and Ben forced himself to bed. But at 3:17 a.m., the familiar ding of a notification pierced the silence. This time, it came from Claire's phone. She had installed the Ring app to ease her nerves. When she checked the screen, her voice trembled. "Ben, it's happening again." The feed loaded slowly, the screen flickering with static. The porch light swayed in the wind, and there, at the edge of the frame, stood a woman. She wore a long white nightgown, her hair drenched and clinging to her face as though she'd just crawled out of a storm drain. Her head was tilted downward, obscuring her features. The audio caught a faint tapping, like fingernails brushing against the door. Then, the woman whispered something so softly it barely registered. Claire turned up the volume. The whisper came again, long, drawn out, and eerily calm, "You didn't close the door." Ben froze. The words mirrored the man's distorted message from the night before, "It's still open." The woman's head twitched upward, revealing a pale, distorted face. Her mouth opened wider than seemed humanly possible, and the whisper turned into a slow, wet breathing sound. She stepped closer, pressing her palm against the camera lens. The screen smeared with moisture, fogging the view. And then, through the distortion, something horrific appeared, a faint, shadowed figure standing behind her on the lawn. Just like before, panic surged through Ben. He rushed to the front door again, half expecting to find the woman there. But when he looked through the peephole, he saw nothing. No one. Only the dark outline of their yard under the streetlight. He opened the Ring app to replay the clip, but it was gone. Not just deleted, but missing entirely from the history. "It's not saved," he muttered. Claire checked her phone. The app froze on the home screen, displaying only the timestamp, 3:17 a.m. The same time. The same loop. The same haunting hour. Moments later, a new notification arrived. "Motion detected, backyard camera." Ben's breath caught. They only had one camera, the front doorbell. Yet, somehow, the system had registered a second device. He tapped it open, and the screen filled with static. Then, for just a few seconds, a grainy image flickered through, the same woman, now standing in the middle of their backyard, her back turned to the house. Her hair whipped in the wind as she slowly raised her arm, pointing directly toward the bedroom window upstairs. The video ended abruptly with a sharp electronic shriek, and then the app went black. Ben and Claire didn't sleep that night. They sat together in the living room, lights on, watching the window until dawn. When the morning sun rose, they stepped outside to check the yard. There were no footprints. No signs of a visitor. But on the back fence, scratched into the wood in jagged letters, was a message that hadn't been there before. "You left it open." 2 days had passed since the last incident, and Redwood Pines was beginning to feel less like a neighborhood and more like a silent graveyard. Ben hadn't slept properly, and Claire insisted they stay at her sister's for a while. But something in Ben wouldn't let him leave, not yet. He needed to understand. So while Claire packed their things, he decided to speak with their next-door neighbor, Mr. Alden, a quiet widower in his 60s who'd lived in the area since it was first built. Ben hadn't seen him in weeks. His lawn had grown wild, and his windows were always dark. But that morning, as Ben walked by, he noticed a faint blue light flickering from inside, like the glow of a television running in an empty room. When Ben knocked, there was no answer. But the door creaked open slightly on its own, as if unlocked. "Mr. Alden," he called softly. Inside, the air was stale and heavy with dust. The television in the living room wasn't showing a broadcast, it displayed the paused feed of a Ring camera. The timestamp, once again, was 3:17 a.m. Curious and unsettled, Ben pressed play. The video began with Alden's front porch, empty under the porch light. Then, movement, something shifting just outside the frame. Slowly, a shape emerged. It was the same woman in white from Ben's footage, her drenched gown dragging across the cement. She walked right up to Alden's camera and began whispering again, her voice low and fragmented, "You shouldn't have watched it." Ben's blood turned cold. In the reflection of the glass door behind her, he could see Alden standing inside his home, frozen, staring at the camera feed as if hypnotized. The woman lifted her hand and began tracing something invisible on the lens. Then, she stepped aside, revealing another figure behind her. The tall man in the soaked hoodie. Both of them turned to face Alden's door, motionless, staring into the house. The video suddenly skipped, static tearing across the screen, and when the image returned, Alden was gone. The front door was wide open. The two figures were no longer outside. Instead, the camera's view now showed only the quiet street. The video ended, just as Ben turned off the TV. A sound echoed from upstairs, a faint scraping, like furniture being dragged slowly across the floor. He froze. "Mr. Alden," he called again, but there was only silence. Gathering his courage, he climbed the stairs. The air grew colder with each step. At the end of the hallway, Alden's bedroom door was half open. Inside, the old man sat motionless on the edge of the bed, eyes fixed on the corner of the room. "She said not to watch it," Alden whispered. His voice was hoarse, barely audible. "Once you see them, they come to your door too." Ben backed away, heart pounding. He didn't know whether to help or run. But before he could respond, Alden's Ring doorbell chimed again from downstairs, the familiar tone echoing eerily through the house. He rushed to the window and looked down at the porch. There was no one there. Yet, on the TV, the live feed had already begun recording again. The same two figures stood outside once more, staring straight into the camera, completely still. And in the upper corner of the screen, the timestamp ticked over .3:17 a.m. Ben stumbled out of Mr. Alden's house just before dawn, shaken and drenched in sweat. His mind was spinning. He couldn't unsee the two figures frozen in that feed, nor forget the timestamp that haunted every clip. 3:17 a.m. It wasn't coincidence. It was a pattern. He hurried back home, determined to disconnect the Ring device once and for all. Claire was sitting on the couch, her suitcase packed, eyes hollow from a sleepless night. "We're leaving," she said firmly. "Now." Ben agreed. But as he reached for the Ring doorbell to remove it, the device blinked to life on its own. A faint red light pulsed in the corner of the lens, and the chime echoed through the empty hallway. Ding, ding. The app on Ben's phone opened automatically. Live view activated, the camera showed their own porch, empty. Then, static swallowed the image for a moment before shifting to another angle entirely. It was as if the camera had switched locations. The feed now displayed what looked like someone else's front door. The camera label read, Alden_home. Ben's heart dropped. "That's not possible," he whispered. The image flickered again. This time, the feed showed a dim, unfamiliar living room, his living room. From the camera's perspective, it was filming from inside the house. He turned toward Claire, realizing that the doorbell wasn't just recording outside anymore. It was watching them. The feed zoomed slightly, the digital lens refocusing. In the lower corner of the video, a faint outline of a person could be seen standing just out of frame, tall, motionless, and partially hidden by the wall. Claire gasped. "Ben, someone's in here." He turned off the app, but it didn't matter. The camera's small LED light continued blinking, recording something unseen. He yanked it from the wall, the wires sparking, but the chime still sounded faintly through the air, disconnected yet alive. On the dark screen of his phone, words began to appear one by one, typed automatically by something he wasn't controlling. "You watched it. Now we can see you." Panic set in. They ran to the car, but as Ben reached for his keys, his phone buzzed again. A new notification from the Ring app, motion detected, living room. Against his better judgment, he opened it. The video showed their empty living room, except for a figure sitting on the couch. It was Ben. His own face, perfectly still, staring blankly ahead as though caught in some trance. Behind this doppelganger, the woman in white stood in the shadows, her hands resting on his shoulders. The screen flickered, and the video replayed itself, over and over. The timestamp? Still 3:17 a.m., even though outside it was bright daylight. In desperation, Ben smashed the phone against the wall, shattering it. But even then, the faint sound of the Ring chime continued to echo, no longer tied to a device. Claire screamed as every screen in the house, TVs, laptop monitors, even the microwave display, flickered to life, all showing the same looping image, their front door. The feed never turned off. The red light blinked endlessly, burning into their retinas. Then, as they tried to flee, a whisper rose from every speaker at once, layered, overlapping voices repeating in unison, "Don't close the door. It's already open." By the next evening, Ben and Claire were gone from Redwood Pines, or at least, that's what the neighbors thought. Their car had been found abandoned near the old highway, doors open, keys still in the ignition. Inside the house, the lights burned continuously, casting eerie shadows across the porch. The police arrived that night, responding to reports of unexplained noises and flickering lights. Officer Ramirez, a seasoned patrolman, was the first to enter. The moment he stepped through the front door, the faint chime of the Ring doorbell sounded behind him. Ding, ding, ding. The house was empty, except for a phone on the living room floor, screen cracked, still recording. When Ramirez picked it up, the Ring app opened automatically. 7 video thumbnails appeared, each labeled in sequence. Video 1, the visitor at 3:17 a.m. Video 2, the whispering woman, all the way to Video 7, the final upload. But only the first 4 were available for viewing. The rest were pending upload. Curious, Ramirez clicked on Video 5. The footage showed him, standing at the front door, just as he had seconds ago, walking into the house. "What the hell," he muttered. The timestamp read 3:17 a.m. even though his watch clearly said 9:46 p.m. As he continued watching, the feed replayed his every move in perfect sync, until something changed. In the video, a tall figure appeared behind him in the hallway, a man in a soaked hoodie, face obscured. Ramirez turned instantly, but the hall was empty. The video feed kept going, showing him spinning around in confusion while, in the background, the woman in white began crawling into the frame on all fours. Her movements were jerky, unnatural, like a puppet being pulled by invisible strings. Then, the screen glitched. For a split second, her face filled the entire view, eyes black, mouth stretched into a silent scream. The lights in the house flickered violently. Ramirez stumbled backward, dropping the phone. The device hit the floor, still recording, showing only static and faint whispers that grew louder with every second. "Once you've seen us, we've already seen you." When the backup team entered 10 minutes later, they found no sign of Ramirez. Only his body cam remained, still recording, showing the same flickering timestamp, 3:17 a.m. The footage was later uploaded to the department's secure server, but officers reported strange occurrences after reviewing it: screens freezing, apps opening on their own, and new, unidentified video files appearing in their devices labeled Ring_3:17. IT specialists wiped the data multiple times, yet each time the files returned, slightly longer, showing new footage of people who'd never been seen before, standing motionless outside their own front doors. Weeks later, a local YouTuber specializing in paranormal content obtained the files through a data leak. He posted a compilation titled 7 Disturbing Videos Captured on Ring/Doorbell Cameras. Within hours, millions had viewed it. But viewers began to notice something horrifying. After watching the final video, many reported strange noises at their doors around 3:17 a.m., a faint knock, followed by a whisper. And when they checked their own Ring cameras, they found new recordings they didn't remember saving, all starting with the same chilling message: "Motion detected, front door, 3:17 a.m. The video has since been removed from every platform, but copies continue to resurface on hidden sites and encrypted forums. Each time, the ending changes slightly, sometimes showing a new victim, sometimes revealing a flash of an unfamiliar street or house. No one knows who uploaded the first video, or why the number 7 keeps reappearing. But those who've seen all 7 clips claim that the final frame always ends the same way: the reflection of their own front door, faintly visible in the camera's lens, right before the feed cuts to black.